Welcome to the Decent Crypto Podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 24th, and we are here with part 5 of the Merge series. I'm here with Matthew Blumberg, who's coming to us live from Denver. Matt, how you doing, brother?
I am so excited. I'm just hyped. I am hyped for this episode. I'm hyped for the Merge. Let's get into it.
I feel like we're building every episode, one by one. We're getting more and more hyped. We have a date now for many things. We have a party happening for the Merge. Still have been advised by our lawyers to not say too much about that, but it's all happening, Matt. It's all happening. Let's get straight into it. We have some dates. We have some weird names and some finalized dates. You were texting me some things. You were like, there's this Bellatrix date. There's the Paris date. I have no idea what any of these words even mean. Can you explain to us what's going on? What's happening? What should we be looking forward to when it comes to the Merge?
Yes. So unlike everyone in crypto, we can get a date.
Hey, not you or I, but
someone out there.
someone I know.
We've got some important dates coming up. We got hot dates. So the first one just announced today is the Bellatrix date. So who is Bellatrix? I don't know who he, she, or them is or was, but what a name.
Great name. Reminds me of Harry Potter.
So just backing up a little bit. So the way that the beacon chain is architected now, there are two pieces of software you have to run if you want to validate proof of stake Ethereum. The first one is consensus. There's a consensus layer, and then there's an execution layer. The way you think about it is execution is like the Ethereum blockchain, basically. And consensus is coming to a consensus around who the active validator is, who gets to propose a block, how much ETH you have staked. So basically consensus, you can think of it as the beacon chain. And execution, You can think of it as the Ethereum blockchain. With
gotcha.
All the smart contracts and stuff going on over there.
Gotcha. Can you bring the mic a little closer? Yeah. Okay. So that's how it's going to actually get activated, start up. What has happened so far?
So far, each of the beacon chain blocks has been missing a parameter. So this is called the execution payload parameter. And it basically contains the block as we would think of it today. All the transactions, all the signatures, they all go into this execution payload. That's just been completely missing on the beacon chain. So the Bellatrix fork is a hard fork of the consensus layer software or client, right? And it says it requires you to have an execution payload that's empty.
Okay.
So it basically sets the stage for it creates a placeholder for this is where the block will go, if that makes sense.
Okay, got it. And okay, so that's basically just been empty this whole time, meaning that no actual transactions are going to happen on the beacon chain. You can maybe move your ETH over and stake it, but you can't actually execute any transactions. You can't start sending ETH back and forth. You can't put it into contracts. You can't deploy new contracts. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a blockchain to control for all of that validator metadata and logic around how much do you have staked and when did you enter the stake and how much uptime do you have and whose turn is it to make a block and the consensus as to the state of the blockchain all happens over there. And then it's been just completely missing this portion called the execution payload portion. And what Bellatrix does is it tells the validators to start including an empty execution payload.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and so you can think of it as just an empty list, in Python with two brackets.
Okay.
So that happened September 8th. That was the date that got announced by the Ethereum Foundation today. And then that sets the stage.
How did they come? how did it come to that date? Is that just set by the foundation, or is that going to happen at a certain block height, or like how is that going to happen?
It's the same way any other Ethereum hard fork works. So I believe it is block height. And basically the idea is they needed to wait until right around now to get some idea for like what the difficulty is going to be over the next couple of weeks. So that they know like roughly when, basically you need Bellatrix to fire before you can actually move to proof of stake. And so you need to know, you need to have some idea roughly for when proof of stake, like the merge itself, is going to happen in order to like back out like when you're allowed to execute the Bellatrix hard fork.
Okay, I see.
And it's worth noting that like every testnet before mainnet has gone through this fork. They all start out with like the same setup where like you don't have any execution payload space at all, and then they all undergo this Bellatrix fork, which tells it to start making empty execution payloads.
Okay, got it. So it is another hard fork, but prior to the merge.
Yep. So this is the last one prior to the merge. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And then we have like another fork, which is called the Paris fork. And and the Paris fork is what we would think of as the actual start of proof of stake Ethereum. So the Paris fork is the merge. And like unlike most other forks, it doesn't go off of block number or date time. It goes off of total terminal difficulty. And so it will execute like automatically. And it does a couple of things. It tells the validators to stop listening to the proof of work chain, and it tells them to start making blocks on the new chain and submitting execution payloads that are not empty.
Okay, got it. So that like last piece that you mentioned, the execution payload not being empty, that's going to be enabled by the previous fork, right? So the the fork right before, right, with Bellatrix on September 8th, that's going to allow these blocks to actually be full. And then when the Paris fork happens, all like basically new blocks will start being made on the proof of stake chain, and they will be like the blocks will be full like with transactions, right? Is that like kind of how it's gonna look like?
So prior to Bellatrix, if you think about it as a kitchen table, or like a dining room table, prior to Bellatrix, like you have like the silverware, the glasses, the glassware, the centerpiece, whatever, the table mat, but you don't have any plates, so there's nowhere for the food to go. Bellatrix puts out empty plates, and it says start including empty execution payloads. And then Paris is going to put the food on the plate.
Okay, got it.
Which is including transactions in these execution payloads.
Yep. Okay, cool. So that we have a date now for sure, like the 14th, 15th September, something around that, because it's still actually the total terminal difficulty, right? So we can't know for sure.
Yeah, you gotta love that, right? It's like
when do you think we will know for sure?
I think Ethereum recalibrates difficulty pretty frequently, so it's going to be like a few blocks out is like when we'll like it depends on what level of fuzziness you're looking for. But as we get closer and closer, like the window closes a little bit. Right now, the prediction according to whenmerge.com is actually September 13th. And it's at like
interesting
around 2 p.m. UTC. Which, if I did the math correctly, puts it at sometime Wednesday or sometime that morning of Tuesday the 13th.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so it's moved a little bit forward relative to like a couple of weeks ago. We thought it was going to be the 14th, 15th. So that impacts our plan for when to have this party.
Yes, the merge party, the most hyped party of 2022.
The most hype party of crypto. It's a big event. It's a big deal.
It's massive. This is one of the biggest events in the history of crypto for sure. Maybe the biggest, I would say.
How could you not have a party?
How could you not have a party? We're gonna have to do a separate episode ranking the top 10 events in the history of crypto.
I would love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Should we just divert right now?
Yeah. Number one, the Pudgy Penguins mint.
Fudgies have been popping
Okay.
off, man. They hit 4 ETH.
Yeah, they did, and then they sank. Okay, this is not an NFT podcast.
No, please tune back in, listeners. Don't go away. Don't leave.
Yes. Okay, let's go into. Is there anything else we should know about either of these hard forks, or really anything on a technical level going into the merge, like the final couple steps here?
Not right now, but those are basically the remaining steps. Is the Bellatrix Fork on September 8th, and then the actual merge itself currently estimated at September 13th.
So when people like refer to the merge, really it's the Paris hard fork. Is that it?
Yeah. So the Paris hard fork is it's actually built differently than most fork logic. It's built different. Built different. It's built to reference this total terminal difficulty.
I see.
And so it will activate automatically when you reach that block. And so the first proof of stake block, that's when the Paris hard fork happens. Is the way to think about it. It's like not in between. It's like at that block number, that's the first block when Paris will have been activated.
With every other hard fork, so like when you're saying it's going to happen automatically, like how does every other hard fork get activated?
I think it's a much more like manual process.
Vitalik goes into a Twitter Spaces and he tells everybody, "Hey guys,"
he goes into the Discord. He tells the validators, "Hey guys, everyone ready?" And someone says, "Hang on, I have to hit the restroom first."
I'm taking the Browns to the Super Bowl. Okay, interesting. So that's Fork Watch for the next couple of weeks here. Bellatrix and then Paris. Yes. Fork Watch brought to you by the Decent Crypto Podcast. All right. Moving on. So we've been talking a lot about, talking about forks, but the fact that there will be a proof of work chain continuing to exist. We're really talking exactly about how the forks are going to play out, right? Like what the proof of stake fork, right? It is a fork. The merge is a fork. It's a hard fork. Like how that is actually going to happen live, like what the actual mechanics are, right? Like we've just been talking about that, but that also leaves the fact that there will be this proof of work chain. ETHW is the ticker that it's been given. It's been listed on one exchange, Poloniex before, but now it's getting a second listing from Bitfinex. It's also, I guess, more notably, it's got a chain ID now.
Yes. So,
can you explain real quick what that is?
There's an active like GitHub repository for proof of work miners to use. And so the goal, I think, behind the proof of work community is to get all of the miners to switch to using this to process like current transactions on Ethereum. And so the idea is it has like an if statement that says if the total difficulty is beyond the total terminal difficulty, then switch the chain ID is the idea. So chain IDs are really important, right? Because they're the only thing that saves you from accidentally like broadcasting your transaction to every EVM chain. So you have a transaction, you sign it. I say, I'm going to send Garon 1 ETH. And then you sign it, and that transaction it's just data, right? Like it can get broadcast anyway. Like I could send a text message to the Infura API, and if it is listening for text, like it can read that data and broadcast that to the network. So the thing about that is that like any valid signed transaction is then like a valid, like there is no other check, right? So if that data exists, it can always get picked up by the network. When you have a hard fork, or like an alt layer 1, you need to change a parameter called the chain ID. So if I send you 1 ETH without changing the chain ID, that would be the same transaction, like the same data byte for byte. as if I sent you one AVAX on the Avalanche C chain, because that's the native asset there. So this chain ID is like a really important parameter. And so basically at the end of every Ethereum transaction, it says, you add like also chain ID equals 1. And then when you sign that, your signature for that, because the transaction data has changed, it's added a chain ID. That signature will be different as well. And so this is what allows you to sign something without it getting broadcast to other networks, or to keep yourself safe from broadcasting it to other networks. Otherwise, like if you wanted an AVAX, you could take my signed transaction and broadcast it to the AVAX network. So we've had a little bit of talk before about like, what are the things that the proof of work chain is going to need to change? And this is like probably the core one, because otherwise, if I do anything on Ethereum proof of stake, it can like, I'm liable for it to happen as well on proof of work Ethereum. So if these two are going to exist as fully separate blockchains, we need to provide like a safe way for users to like use one and not the other at the same time.
Right. So is this the chain ID part of it, right? Is that the miners coming to a social consensus basically and saying like, look, we're all going to use this chain ID because this is just how we're going to coordinate transactions on this network?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
And you can think of it like, if there's a transaction with another chain ID, it will just not get included in the blockchain because it's an invalid transaction. It doesn't have the valid signature, right?
Okay.
So
okay, that makes sense. That was something that we had flagged.
You can actually go to chainlist.org, a quick plug for this beautiful tool, and see what all the different chain IDs are. And so like when you're setting up MetaMask for like some kind of like crazy degenerate network like Near, Doge chain, you have to specify which chain ID you want to use there. That's really like the core parameter. Like there's all these other things like, what do you want to name it? What's the name of the network? And like, what's the, block explorer and all that. But in reality, the one thing that actually is important is the chain ID. So chainlist.org is like a really good resource for that.
Okay. So the chain ID has been set.
Yes, it's 10001.
Nice.
So Ethereum has chain ID 1. And this is the miners capitulating, man. We've been talking about miners capitulating all bear market. But this is truly the miners capitulating. They're saying, look, it doesn't matter that like we were here first and the original Ethereum was always proof of work. We're just going to roll with it and like let proof of stake have that chain ID 1. So that there's not like ensuing chaos. And we'll take chain ID 10001.
Yeah. I think they're fighting an uphill battle. So they're going to have to take, what they can get in many of these, little spats here. So, but the thing is, the chain ID has been set, which means that, they are going to move forward. There will be a chain, there will be exchanges that support it. So speaking of which, we had a second exchange, not exactly support, the proof of work chain, but kind of Bitfinex, essentially provided a new token that is a really, really interesting product, but it's basically a derivative product that tracks both chains, essentially, right? So users have the ability to basically be trading, tokens that track both the proof of work chain and the proof of stake chain. So what they're calling it is chain split tokens, CSTs, that allow you to trade on basically like the outcome of the merge. So this has not gone live yet, to my knowledge, but they are going to support it. They had a blog post. Basically, the way it works is like it helps you prepare for like different kinds of outcomes. It's like if there's both chains, if there's only one chain, if there's like, I don't know, I guess like no Ethereum, but so you can kind of trade. I don't know. You can trade like the outcome, like what you think is going to happen, which one you think is going to have more value. I think it's good that the liquidity is being basically sourced and created right now before these events all happen, because it could lead to, like you said, more chaos otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think eventually every exchange is going to list a proof of work ETH. It just like exchanges make their money on volume, right? Like there's, you should be trying to list everything you legally can. And, I think like Poloniex was like, it has always been like a little bit further out the risk curve. But I think, the day is close when we see Coinbase and FTX and all the other normie exchanges, Binance, like start to list these products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like, this is, I think, well, to be honest, I don't know if that, especially something like Coinbase and Kraken being US based, I don't know if they can create these kinds of derivative products, right? Because right now, these are derivative products. These are not spot, it's not spot ETH, right? The way it works, right, just to actually break it down, is like you deposit ETH into your Bitfinex account, into a specific account, like designating that you want these CSTs. And then you get equal parts of the ETHS is what they're calling it, ETHS and ETHW, right? The proof of work ETH and the proof of stake ETH. But then to redeem and get your actual ETH back, you need to have equal parts of both, right?
Wow.
You need to basically return it. Yeah. So in the middle, you can trade, you can do whatever you want, right? And then you can just keep one of the tokens, and eventually, one of them might expire worthless, or they'll have an open trading venue, right, to convert it to fiat, or at least to convert it to other assets post merge, right? But you can basically, they're saying like you can start to have price discovery now, or I don't know actually when this is going live, but soon.
I mean,
TM.
Poloniex already has markets, right?
Yeah.
For the ETHW derivative, and it's priced, I think, at about 3% of the value of ETH.
Yeah, so very low.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where it'll fluctuate around for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if like after the merge, like maybe 1 week out, like in that, I wouldn't be surprised if during that first week it goes as high as like 7 or 8%. But it's going to be really hard to time it, right? And it'll probably go as low as 1%, right? And like it'll probably steady state hit like 2%.
Yeah, I'm not planning to trade this event at all. There are so many big players with so much capital at their disposal, and they all have their own agendas. Like Poloniex, the one exchange that's going to provide the most liquidity, is owned by Justin Sun. And Justin Sun is a fucking whale who has an insane mind. So I have no idea what he's thinking, yeah.
Loco whale.
Yeah, not financial advice.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
So there's a couple more, I would say, like controversial things. Like while we're talking about proof of work ETH, one of them I want to get your take on. So, well, both of them. But first, like, have you seen this thing about freezing LP contracts?
Yes. Can you explain a little bit what this is?
Yeah. So on proof of work ETH, basically all the stable coins are worth 0 after the merge, because you can't just have like double stable coins, right? They're not backed by anything. And Circle and Tether have both come forward and said like they're only going to support proof of stake ETH. And so on proof of work, like those coins are just going to go to 0, right? They're valueless governance tokens. Actually, that'd be funny. We should make if somebody made like a Circle DAO that was like, the USDC, but it's like a governance token this time. So it's going to cause a lot of like chaos in the DeFi world, right? And like we dug into this a few parts back. I think it was like part 2 or 3 of our merge series. But the creators or the people working on proof of work ETH are kind of concerned that like a lot of users are going to get wrecked, right? So for example, if you're providing liquidity to the ETH USDC pool, when the merge happens, all of a sudden people are going to come in with USDC and buy up all of your ETH because USDC is now worthless on that chain. And so like you as the liquidity provider are going to get wrecked. And so in order to be like responsible participants in the DeFi ecosystem, like they don't want to be like, oh, you should withdraw all your ETH. I mean, they do say that, but that's not going to happen. And so they're fighting for social consensus here. They need people to feel like at least they tried, and that ETHW wasn't just like fucked over in the first 3 blocks. You know what I mean? So people are going to hold a lot of resentment if like everybody that was providing liquidity to ETHUSDC on Uniswap just like completely loses all value associated with that LP position. And so one proposal that they've given is they want to freeze, I guess manually, every contract where it's like an XY equals K like AMM that has ETH any stable, I guess. And so it's not actually part of the code base because like I think frankly just because there's so many contracts, like there's not just Uniswap. Like Uniswap itself has a lot of ETH contracts, right? A lot of ETH liquidity pools. But there's SushiSwap, there's Aave, there's Compound, there's Maker, right? There's a lot of places where like this is just going to tumble. And so while it's like kind of a noble thought, I don't think you can do it. What do you think?
I don't. It seems like such a short-term fix, and not even an actual fix. It just seems like a short-term patch that's not going to work at all. Because even then, I don't understand the outcome here, right? Like at some point, the assets, the stable coins, at least, they all do go to zero on the proof of work chain, and that causes mass chaos at some point whenever you unfreeze those positions, right? So even if you do freeze these LP positions, or like, what does that do exactly, right?
So I guess their plan is to someday implement a hard fork that removes these liquidity pools or changes them so that all you can do is redeem your LP position. And then at least like if you were like say 50-50 USDC ETH, you could at least get your USDC and ETH out. And even though your USDC is worth zero, like you still get 50% of your value back. But that's like, that's a lot of technical work to make that happen, make sure you don't miss anyone and all of that. Like, it's just, I don't see where the developers are going to come from. You know what I mean?
That's tough. Yeah. There's going to be so little incentive, especially on the proof of work chain, to make that happen. And if the incentive is there, it's going to be with people that are just absolute whales. And if they're the ones that are writing the code to return funds to, LPs, then there's just a big chance of that being gamed or rigged. So I think that could be very, very messy. And just the more I look at it, the proof of work chain, unless there's some crazy organic demand, it's just going to, I don't want to say it's going to die, right? I think it's going to die in its current state. I think it needs to die, like literally, like basically die, and then be reborn as like, we need to rebuild all of DeFi, or at least like rebuild the state, not necessarily rebuild all the contracts and all of the work that's been done, because from my understanding, all of the contracts can still stay, right? Like you can still have, this is not like a new kind of ecosystem that you have to build everything from scratch. It'll all still be there, but like the state basically needs a hard reset, right? So in a sense, that can be a good thing, right? Like you have the opportunity as the people that believe in that chain to rebuild everything from scratch and to set the norms, to build, kind of like a societal culture on chain the way that you wanted to, right? With new systems, with, they can basically rebuild like Maker and, all these kinds of things with all the learnings that we've had the past, few years. From DeFi and from all the other ecosystems, all the other L1s that launched as well, right? So there is an actual opportunity there. If people want to go in and build something from scratch, basically say like, look, if we had the opportunity to do Ethereum over, right? Like we kind of have that now, because everything is going to go to zero. You're going to have block space. It's going to be super cheap. The actual asset is going to be super cheap. Like it's kind of an ideal like play area, if you want that, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of smart people to actually build stuff that's valuable, and they're going to want to abide by those values, right? Of proof of work, having an L1 that's, secured by miners running this hardware rather than, proof of stake, which is basically supported by everybody in the community. Or at least, massive swaths of people, and the most notable people, including the founder. So it's going to take a massive effort, but it's there if somebody wants to do it, right? If somebody believes that strongly in proof of work at the base layer, like, you really have a massive golden opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
I mean, it's amazing, right? Because you look at these projects like, I think the closest parallel would be Cosmos shared security, where like the way that the Atom token accrues value is that developers are going to set up their own blockchains called Cosmos zones, and then they're going to get their security from the existing Cosmos validator set, who can, so, they're validating the parent chain of like Cosmos Hub, but they can also validate child chains. Same thing with subnets, supernets, right? You have kind of an interesting parallel here where like that hash power does exist, right? Like you sort of don't have to worry about bootstrapping the security. You just have to like worry about whether or not they're going to get paid enough to do it, right? It's pretty interesting. So I guess related to that, right? And related to like how are they going to pay developers to like build cool stuff on proof of work ETH? There was a proposal from the proof of work ETH community, and this is wild. So they're reversing EIP 1559, and they're going to give the funds instead of getting burned, they're going to send the ETH that you use for your transaction to a multi-sig, which is controlled by, I guess, Justin Sun, and like everybody, and like members of the ETH proof of work community. And they're going to use that for developer incentives. What do you think?
On the face of it, not the worst idea, right? Like, why burn the token when you can actually use it for public goods, right? This is all about public goods funding anyways,
public
right?
Goods funding.
Dude, Justin Sun is the OG public goods fundor. So yeah, man, all these guys at, Gitcoin and all this stuff, doing all this hand waving, Justin Sun is out here making moves. I don't know, man. I just think that if Vitalik had made this proposal, people would be all over it. People would be like, yo, this guy is a hero. Give him the Nobel Prize for economics and for peace.
I mean, that's what like, people did for optimism, right? Where like optimism fees are going to public goods funding, and literally they're like, all right, I'll take my Nobel Prizes now. Can we get one in physics for solving the public goods funding problem?
For solving MEV and public goods funding.
Their solution to MEV is they collect it all.
Yeah, pretty much, and they spend it how they want.
The DAO. The DAO's gonna vote, man. As soon as they figure out this Citizen House situation. But
shout out Joanna. You don't listen
shout
to the
out
podcast
Joanna.
anyway, so you're not gonna catch this. But hey, shout out anyways. So I think that it sounds like a great proposal, honestly.
You think so?
No, obviously not. It's not going to go well at all. This is a way for Justin Sun to enrich himself if he's the one in charge. But
let's say hypothetically, like, it works out well. So there's a multi-sig and the people that are in charge of it have their incentives, aligned to fund new projects building on proof of work Ethereum. Okay. Does that change your like analysis of it? Like, say it's not just Justin Sun controlling all the keys. Like, say it actually is like a group of people that are signing off on high quality projects to get built.
No, my whole like facetious like first, like my whole facetious first 90 seconds was like only half facetious. I actually think it's a good idea. Like I get the idea of burning tokens, but I don't really get the idea of burning tokens, if I'm being honest.
So here's where it falls apart for me. Is like they collect some ETHW, right, and they use it for developer incentives. What's the first thing that the developer does with that ETHW?
No, they sell it.
They sell it, yeah. And so it's a little bit like the post ICO bubble phase, when like all of these projects that raised money denominated in ETH had to sell it, and it just like depressed the price like pretty badly. That's, I think, where that's my primary concern. Most people's primary concern is, wait, what? A multi-sig's getting all the gas fees? What? Like, this seems like pretty dangerous. But yeah, from a crypto economics perspective, right? Like you got to, that's the point of burning, right? Is it like decreases the supply, as opposed to like sending all of the gas fees to miners, which is how it was set up before, who were just like natural sellers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to game the price, to be honest. Like, if we're just calling it what it is, like, it's a way to pump the price of ETH long term. But I don't know, like, I think it's a cool experiment. I also think for sure, like, guaranteed, if the Gitcoin guy has made this proposal or Vitalik made this proposal, it gets received completely differently, and people are fully all over it. Even I think now that looking back, I just think that there was such a fervor for like anything that would pump the price at that time, and anything that Vitalik supported, and really that still exists. But really, just thinking about it, if he had made this proposal instead of EIP 1559, I think it would have been received the exact same way. Like, very well. People would be like, this is fantastic. Like, Ethereum is so forward looking. This is the future of humanity. I mean, that's what the optimism guys say about themselves anyways. But, I think that's what everybody would have said about Vitalik, or the whole Ethereum Foundation, and, whoever proposed this.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're completely right. Hot takes, but it's true.
Hot takes, yeah, I don't know. Okay, here's the main thing. There's just not going to be much funding that's going to go through there, because there's not going to be much transaction volume and not too many transaction fees paid to the miners. So we're not arguing over many, not too much ETH here. Also, the ETHW is going to be worth very little. Unless, maybe I know. Maybe Justin Sun is the exact hero that I was talking about, the one that bootstraps this dead network. ETHW dies, all the stable coins die, it goes to the ground, and then it rises from the ashes like a phoenix. Justin Sun is Albus Dumbledore. ETHW is his phoenix. I don't know.
Maybe, right?
No, definitely not. Zero chance. Not even a maybe.
Look, I could see ETHW if they just kind of take this like think about Dogechain, right? Dogechain was like very clear about what it was, right? It didn't pretend anything. It was like, we're like a casino.
A rug
we're
platform?
A casino. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a rug platform. Want to launch a shitcoin? Try and pump and dump it? Like, miss the old days? Come to Dogechain. Yeah. It's still alive.
Did you miss
and well
Binance
here.
Smart Chain in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020? Well, come over to Dogechain.
And 2021.
And 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, come to Dogechain. Like, the casino's open 24 hours, right? If ETHW did something like that, right, where they honed in and focused on like one value proposition, right? Like, maybe ETHW like is just like the place where you go to get crazy fucking leverage or something, right? Like 1,000x leverage, and you like literally get wrecked on almost every trade. Maybe your own slippage wrecks you, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say that means somebody needs to also write an on-chain decentralized exchange.
I mean, yeah. Well, you could do it, right? It's not like there's much block space demand. Like, it's not like gas fees are going to be high. Like, you could put as much logic as you want.
But that's what I'm saying. Somebody actually needs to be incentivized to do it.
I mean, the bigger issue is that there's no oracles,
Oh, true.
right? Like when you think about what goes away
That's what
on
I'm saying.
ETHW,
The
it's the
whole thing
off-chain
needs to be
entities,
rebuilt.
oracles, stable
Yeah.
coins, like that.
On ramps,
That's really
off
the big thing.
ramps, fiat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bridges. Dude, Synapse will
Yeah.
bridge to ETH proof of work. Of course they will.
Of course they will. Of course they will. Justin Sun will make it happen. He probably runs Synapse too. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like everything needs to be rebuilt. Basically, what's been provided here is an opportunity to rebuild Ethereum from scratch, if that's what you want. And you have the playbook, right? You have everything that happened the last 5 years, and you can rebuild it however you want in your own image. And you have all these miners who are down to at least keep the network running, it seems, for a little bit, until maybe it does go to zero.
I mean, you'll
How long
have
do
a
you think you
flux,
have?
right? Like as long as there's a block reward, you will have miners, right? Like you might like difficulty might go to zero and you're mining it on your cell phone or something, right? But like if if somebody's cost of electricity is low enough, they will mine this chain.
Oh, okay, true. So, do you think we get to a? Oh my God. Okay, hold on. What about this? What if we get to a world where the difficulty goes so low, people start selling off their GPUs, and then ETH proof of work is just like a fully decentralized like
God, it's
chain
like
of
super,
nodes that
like-
are like on your phone. Like anybody can just run the node on their phone, and then that becomes like it starts picking up traction because of that, and then it actually becomes a big network.
I mean, how long have we been talking about the fantasy world where that can happen, right? Where
Dude,
we have
that would be
very
insane.
resource light. Wait, what if it winds up being less?
Being
what
the
if like
Solana phone.
you could see a
Oh my
world
God.
you could see a world where, because like the consensus client and execution client, like they take up a fair amount of like the beacon chain operating that like takes some compute, right? More than just validating the execution layer. It is like technically feasible that if difficulty got low enough on proof of work ETH, it would be greener than proof of stake ETH.
Oh my God, that would be so wild. Wouldn't that immediately flip though if the difficulty starts to rise again?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I mean,
but that will be a great time. It will happen too. Like it will definitely happen.
yeah. I mean,
there will be a
if
time.
ETHW sells off enough, and people sell off all their miners,
Yeah,
yeah,
it will be a greener chain than proof of stake ETH.
and if it dies, then it's really greener than proof of stake ETH.
Yes,
right? Like
absolutely.
if it actually stops making blocks.
Yes.
They
Wow.
should be
This
thanking
is-
Justin Sun.
Yeah, they should be thanking Justin Sun. We've also like solved climate change, dude. If somebody takes up too much energy, you just kill it. You literally just murder it. Thank you. And you're welcome as well. All the people in Europe with these energy problems, you're welcome.
Yeah, don't let Putin dictate the price of your Ethereum.
I think we need to
proof of
cut
work for
ourselves
all.
off soon. Oh man. Okay, wait. There was one more thing that happened. My employer. I feel like we talk about Coinbase way too much. But hey, fun product. It's mostly been positive stuff.
Yeah, base Brian.
Coinbase liquid stake based Brian. Liquid staking from Coinbase.
What?
Competitor to Lido. This seems like I was looking at the white paper. It seems like it's basically just a competitor to it's like a competitor to Lido basically.
It's centralized Lido, right? Because Coinbase also operates the validators. As opposed to Lido, which is like delegates. Yeah.
Right. But yeah. I mean, Lido is decentralized in its validator set, but you don't get a say over who is validating your, or like you don't get to choose the validators or anything.
The customer doesn't get to choose, but the DAO gets to choose at a higher level who's allowed to validate and who's not.
True. Brian is the DAO. Um, okay, yeah. So,
Dude, what a
but
great
I
idea.
think,
Coinbase ETH. This is like, it
yeah,
solves all their problems, right?
it's
Like
fantastic.
you're worried
Yeah.
Coinbase is going to have to censor transactions or whatever. Sell your Coinbase ETH. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't fucking wait for liquidity. Like,
Yeah.
speculate, right?
Yeah.
Like if Coinbase ETH goes to any substantial discount, I'm going to buy it, right? Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Oh, I mean, not financial advice. I don't even know if I can trade this product. Yada yada yada. I definitely can't. There's no way I can trade that
You don't think
product.
you can trade Coinbase? Can you not? Can you trade on
There's no way.
Coinbase?
I have to trade on Coinbase, but I don't think
Oh,
I can
okay.
trade Coinbase ETH. I'm pretty sure it got added to our restricted
To your
list.
restricted list?
We'll
Interesting.
cut this out for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
What a great idea! What
yeah,
a great idea! It solves all their problems, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, straight up.
people are worried about staking centralization. You don't like it? Fucking sell your Coinbase ETH, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll buy it. Not financial advice.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're
Yeah.
worried about censorship? Like sell your Coinbase ETH. Not financial advice, but I'll fucking buy it. If you want to sell it at like a steep enough discount, I will absolutely buy your Coinbase ETH. Coinbase, if you're worried about Coinbase going bankrupt, sell your Coinbase ETH. If you're worried that like you're not going to get liquidity on your staked ETH, like sell your Coinbase ETH. If you want to ape into like Doodles because they're at 7, sell your Coinbase ETH, buy regular ETH. It's like across the board. What a fantastic idea! I feel like in like one move they solved all of their like proof of stake related issues. Like it's fucking brilliant. I didn't think of it.
I didn't think of it. Also, this is like another revenue stream, or no? Or it's the same because the staking service is always in place, so it's not really. Oh, it's another revenue stream because it's a trading revenue.
One more token, yeah,
yeah. Hey.
Anything is a revenue stream for an exchange,
hey,
right?
True,
Yeah.
true, dude. Based Brian.
Brian. Moreover, look, like people like liquid staking, right? Like there's a reason Lido has such a large market share, right?
Yeah.
Because it's complicated to stake with Lido, right? Like you have to have MetaMask, you have to send your MetaMask, you have to go to the Lido website and stake it there. With Coinbase and Kraken, like the two other large staking providers, they're centralized. You just click a button and stake it, right? Like from the website. You don't have to download MetaMask. You don't need to buy a ledger. It's like so much easier. Now they've got the best of both worlds, right? And so I think like dangerously, I think their share of the staking world is going to increase substantially because 100%. It's like, well, I do have that optionality. At least if I like really need the liquidity, I can sell my staked ETH.
Oh, I mean, here's the thing. Also, Coinbase has partnerships with the biggest market makers, every big financial player that wants liquidity, that wants more products, that wants literally exactly this. They're already a client of Coinbase's, and they are very tied into everything Coinbase is doing on the institutional side already. So there's a lot more that can happen, I think, with, just this door that's been opened now.
I mean, you think about like people that use Coinbase custody, right? Maybe they were worried.
Coinbase Prime now.
Yeah. Maybe they were worried about staking before, right? Like maybe they're like concerned that they might need the liquidity, right? Like look at Tesla. Like a lot of people would have thought that like Tesla would hold their Bitcoin for a while, but like, they hit tough times and like they couldn't do it. All of a sudden staking has become an option for you through Coinbase, or an option for you broadly because you use Coinbase custody, and you can use them to connect with your like staking, right? Like, as opposed to like, if you were using like one of these centralized custodians before, you really couldn't like, unless you were using like Ledger Prime or whatever, or like MetaMask Professional or whatever they call it. Like there was no way to access staking and custody at the same time. Now you can.
It's going to open up a lot of doors for people to get in. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's just a really good product. But how long is this product even relevant, right? For what, one year, 6 to 12 months after the merge? And then
there's always going to be an on-ramp and an off-ramp like waiting period, right? And it depends on how much ETH is attempting to enter or exit the system at any given time. Like there was a point where it was like over a month, like earlier this year, if you wanted to add ETH as a validator. So
if you wanted to add ETH as a validator, what does that mean?
If you want to like make a new validator and stake 32 ETH, like you had to wait in line.
Oh,
You can't
interesting.
just enter and exit the system instantly because it's like part of the way that like proof of stake security works. Like you need to have like a minimum, you need to have a guarantee that there's going to be a minimum amount of like staked assets at any given time. And so depending on how much new ETH is coming in and staking and how much ETH is exiting and unstaking, there's like a wait period. There's a queue. And so this is, faster, right? Like even if we get to the point where like the queue takes 2 days, it's like just a lot faster. If you like want that liquidity now, you might be willing to pay a premium for it. So the product is relevant forever.
Hmm. Wow. Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
look at
Wait.
Synapse, right? Like we all use Synapse to
Yeah.
bridge to layer twos because we don't want to wait 7 days.
Hmm. Huh. Okay. Wow. Interesting. I never thought about that. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
It'll always
But
trade
it
at a
does.
discount, right?
Right.
Because of
Right.
that
Huh.
liquidity premium. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Wow. Nice.
Yeah. Do you think Kraken's going to follow suit?
I was gonna say, I actually, the more I think about it, I'm so surprised that every exchange hadn't already done this before. Like, actually, like we had all talked about, like, oh, we're gonna move to proof of stake. Like, it's basically just gonna rebuild the old system where there's like 10 oligarchs in charge of the whole thing, and it's like, it's not even the worst thing. But also, like, why don't they just have their own product like Lido does? Like, this just makes so much sense. So yeah, I would assume there will be a KR ETH for Kraken. There will probably be I don't know if Gemini is even a thing anymore, but there will probably be an FETH for FTX and BETH. I think there is a BETH actually for Binance. It already
There is a
exists.
BETH, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Um,
but it must be broadly related to like when they spun up support for Ethereum. Like it was easier and faster for them to create like their own ETH tracked derivative or something. I'm not sure.
yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but
So I think they will also follow suit. I think it just makes sense.
yeah, makes a ton of sense. I
Yeah.
was going to ask, do you think this increases the compliant like regulations concerns? Do you think this looks more like a security if it's a liquid tradable token rather than a service contract that you entered into with them when you staked with them and it was illiquid?
I'm just glad that I don't have to think about these things. Broadly speaking, I don't really know, dude. Are we gonna go through all 6 criteria of the Howey test here?
Yeah, it has to involve oranges. If not oranges, at least tangerines.
I
I don't know. I
think
mean,
that
like,
this will. Yeah, I do think that. Well, okay, it's an ERC7. It's an ERC20 token, right? So I don't know what does that mean, right? Like it is an interest-bearing asset. Like I don't know what does that mean. It's I
yeah,
have
I
no
mean,
idea.
it has some notion. So it's a common enterprise kind of. I think that's actually the weakest argument, right? So it has to be a common enterprise that you're investing in.
Oh, you're
That
actually
has
doing the Howey test.
like I was listening to an old FOnly the other day where they watch like they live watch a speech from Gary Gensler with like a bunch of regulatory experts and they go through point by point like what's he saying, does he have a point, is he missing something here?
I remember that one.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And it takes like 2 hours. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So like it has to be, yeah, like so it's common enterprise, you're investing in it. There's some promise of like profit or return. And then, it has to be like contingent on the performance of a like small third party, like a limited number of players. And so that's why Bitcoin isn't a security because it's not like there's no, there's no like expectation of profit, and B, like it's decentralized, and that's why decentralization is such a big legal thing. Like it's a spectrum.
That was
obviously, but like where do you get to start offering these products on the spectrum?
That was basically the guidance the SEC gave a couple years ago, is that Ethereum probably was a security when it was created, but it no longer is. It's sufficiently decentralized, is what they said.
Yeah, and I think like this is still Bitcoin maxis still think that ETH is a security. Like you see it on Twitter like pretty frequently, right? Like some
that is wild. It's like I don't know who needs to say outside of the securities an exchange commission that it's not a security for people to believe that it's not a security, but I don't know.
Who's paying people to FUD ETH as a security? Like, what's the incentive here?
Dude, the Bitcoin maxi brain is a special one. All right. Anything else you got? I think we covered most everything that happened this past week around the merge. We got a few dates lined up. Not us, unfortunately, but there are dates on the calendar to look forward to: September 8th, September 13th, and a merge party at some point at an undisclosed location. Some interesting new products, Coinbase, ETH, some interesting new announcements for proof of work ETH. Justin's son is Albus Dumbledore. Learned that today. And we will be back this weekend with another crypto recap of everything that happened this week. Until then, stay decent.
None of this was financial advice, legal advice, investment advice, or any other kind of advice. If you're looking for advice, you are definitely in the wrong place. Until next time, stay decent.